Part 13, After the Battle. Meanwhile, Dr. Erebus finds himself intrigued by Dark Emperor Alpha's words and the revelations about the nature of the universe and the true source of power. He feels a sense of belonging and purpose in this newfound knowledge, and the possibility of redemption through the struggle against the light appeals to him deeply. The Dark King and the Dark Lord, having witnessed the conversation between Erebus and Alpha, exchange knowing glances. They too have felt the weight of their actions and the darkness within them, but now they see a chance for redemption and a new path forward. They silently vow to support Dark Emperor Alpha and help him shape the infinite universes according to his grand design, using their own knowledge and experience to contribute to the greater good.
Darkest Emperor Alpha,
Sensing the loyalty and dedication of his newfound followers, decides to entrust them with even greater responsibilities. He reveals his plan to create an army of powerful beings known as Necromonarchs, beings that would embody the essence of both darkness and creation, forging a new order in the multiverse. The Dark King and the Dark Lord are given the task of finding and recruiting suitable candidates for this army, while Dr. Erebus is tasked with developing the technology needed to create and control them. As they depart to begin their new tasks, Erebus turns to Dark Emperor Alpha and asks, "So, how do I get started on those Necromonarchs?" Alpha smiles cryptically. "The first step, my dear Erebus, is to understand the nature of life itself. Seek out the most knowledgeable beings in the multiverse, those who have delved deepest into the mysteries of existence, and learn from them. Then you must find a way to harness that knowledge, to twist it and shape it to our purposes. Only then will you be ready to begin creating the Necromonarchs." The Empire of Shadowstein, now controlling the entire solar system, first makes Zarya and thus the remaining X3 declare their loyalty to and join their empire. Eager to prove their worth, Erebus, the Dark King, and the Dark Lord set out on their separate missions to find and recruit suitable candidates for the Necromonarchs. Erebus, driven by his insatiable curiosity and desire for knowledge, seeks out the most learned and wise beings in the multiverse, hoping to glean insights into the nature of life and death. Darkest Emperor Alpha, though, tells him to seek out and ask Dark King Mordecai about it, him having once been a necromancer after all before he became the Shadow King.
the Dark Lord, feeling more than a little left out, decides to take matters into his own hands. He seeks out the most powerful beings of shadow and darkness, those who dwell in the forgotten corners of the multiverse, hoping to find individuals who share his affinity for the darkness, and who can be convinced to join their ranks. His search leads him to the heart of a forgotten nebula, where he finds a being of pure shadow energy floating aimlessly in the void. The Dark Lord approaches the being cautiously, for he has never encountered anything quite like this before. "Who or what are you?" he asks, his voice barely audible over the howl of the stellar winds. The shadowy being floats closer, its amorphous shape becoming more defined. It resembles a massive cloud of pure black smoke, surrounded by an aura of cold and malice. Its eyes, two pits of infinite darkness, seem to gaze directly into the depths of the Dark Lord's soul. "I am known as Erebos," it whispers. "I have dwelt in the darkness for countless ages, watching and waiting. I am the embodiment of shadow and oblivion, and I hunger for power." The Dark Lord's heart races at the being's words. "Then you are whom I have been seeking," he says, bowing his head in deference. "I am the Dark Lord, and I lead the Empire of Shadowstein. We seek to create an army of beings known as Necromonarchs, who will rule over all that is and ever was. Would you join us in our crusade?" Erebos floats closer still, its shadowy tendrils caressing the Dark Lord's armor. "I have long dreamed of such an army," it rasps, "but only under the right conditions. Tell me more of your plans." The Dark Lord nods, stepping back to grant Erebos some space. "We have been working on a ritual that will allow us to create the first Necromonarch. Once it is born, it will lead an army of the undead and other fell creatures to conquer all who oppose us. Once our empire is firmly established, we will begin the process of creating more Necromonarchs until there is one ruling over each of the infinite realms. Erebos seems to look curious about something. What is your purpose for creating these Necromonarchs? Erebos asks eventually. The Dark Lord raises an eyebrow at the question. Our purpose? To rule. Of course, all of existence will be subject to our whims. The Necromonarchs will be the unstoppable force. That will bring the entire multiverse to its knees, and we shall be the ones who shall sit upon the thrones of power and dominion. Erebos then seems to narrow its eyes of pure darkness. I can tell that you are attempting to deceive me, almost as if you yourself don't fully understand the reason. Almost like you serve another. Who do you serve? Erebos says and even asks accusingly. The Dark King, who seems to be in a state of shock and confusion, mutters to himself. He speaks truth, but how could that be? I serve Alpha. I serve Dark Emperor Alpha with all of my heart and soul. Erebos seems utterly shocked. The Dark Emperor Alpha. That isn't a name I've heard in over a millennium. Erebos says in complete and utter shock. The Dark Queen, who has been quietly watching and listening to this exchange, finally speaks up. Perhaps, my Lord Erebos, you should come with us. Alpha has been watching you and has seen the potential in you to aid us in our goals. You may find that serving him is not so different from what you desire. Dark King Mordecai then adds on. In fact, he is now known as Darkest Emperor Alpha, and he is by far the most powerful he has ever been. Erebos pauses for a moment, clearly contemplating this new information. And what exactly is it that you propose I do? He asks, a hint of curiosity in his voice. Dark Lord Lothar then begins speaking again. Well, you join our empire, his empire, the Empire of Shadowstein. Dark Lord Lothar asks, yes, I believe I could find my place here. Though, what is it exactly that I am supposed to do? Erebos says with a hint of curiosity. Dark Lord Lothar continues. You would aid in the creation of Necromonachs, alongside likely other powerful beings to aid in the process. And what would be the ultimate goal of these Necromonachs? Erebos asks, intrigued. Dark Lord Lothar continues. To aid in obtaining enough power to fundamentally change the nature of existence. Erebos pauses for a moment, considering this. I see. And what role do the Dark Lords, such as yourselves, play in this grand scheme? Dark Queen Lilith begins speaking. Well, the term is actually the Dark Ones because we aren't all lords exactly, but, well, we are the closest advisors of Darkest Emperor Alpha, a man who has surpassed the God Emperors and seeks to fundamentally change existence for the better. And what does that mean exactly? Erebos asks, clearly intrigued. Dark King Mordecai begins speaking. He seeks to eliminate strife, war, and segregation, and other awful things that befall unfortunate individuals all throughout existence. Erebos listens intently, his curiosity clearly piqued. And how exactly would this be achieved? He asks. Leaning in closer to the group, Dark Lord Lothar begins speaking. He seeks to gain enough power to fundamentally change existence, no matter the means necessary. Erebos raises an eyebrow at this, and you are confident that he has the ability to do so. Dark Lord Lothar then continues. Well, he has already surpassed the God Emperor's one of, which was capable of influencing all of existence to be under his control briefly with a snap of his fingers. Erebos thinks for a moment. That is quite impressive. And what of his past? Do you have any information on that? Dark Lord Lothar continues. He was once just a boy on the planet Earth, who grew up in Asia in the year 719, and after the murder of his parents, was ostracized and even hunted, and had attempts on his life for the dark and shadow magic he was born with, the first ever to be born with them, and, well, eventually, he just let himself become the monster everyone saw him as, and, well, attempted to change everything. Then over the many years afterwards had run-ins with the God Emperor, lives, and developed his goal to fundamentally change existence so as to that the awful things from his past never happen to anyone ever again. No matter the cost, Erebos listens intently, his expression growing more contemplative. And you believe that he can succeed in this endeavor. Dark Lord Lothar continues. Well, he surpassed the seemingly omnipotent God Emperors, and even the even more seemingly omnipotent God Emperor Marcus Aurelius specifically. So, from what I know, there's nothing he seemingly can't do if he's determined to get it done. The Dark King interjects, and even then, who's to say that some might not see him as a new God Emperor, or even a Dark God Emperor? Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, as they say. Dark Lord Lothar then responds, I believe that Darkest Emperor Alpha would know that better anyone else, and would be always doing everything in his absolute power to prevent that from occurring, because for at this point a being of pure darkness, the only other pure he is are pure good and pure-hearted. The Dark Queen pauses for a moment, considering the conversation, then speaks up, and yet one cannot help but wonder if there is not a part of him that envies such purity, even as he strives to protect it. Dark Lord Lothar then responds to him, what or who would he even have to envy, as the pure goodness and pure heart are his alone? If anything, we would be the ones envious of him for having them. But, well, I have none of those feelings, because, well, he feels like a brother to me, or, at least, a brother in arms. The Dark Queen pauses for a moment, considering the words, then nods slowly. Yes, I suppose you're right. And yet, there is still something about him that seems different. Somehow, something that makes one wonder what he might have been like, had he been born into a different time, a different place, under different circumstances. Dark Lord Lothar continues. Yes, one would and will always wonder that, but, well, if it weren't for how he was born and grew up under different circumstances, well, we might not have ended up being the same people we are today, or learning the same lessons we have throughout our entire lives. Erebos, the embodiment of shadow and oblivion, just watches them discuss this matter, which even impresses him. Ah, Dark Queen, Dark King, Dark Lord, you are wise. There is always the chance that someone, or something, might change the course of fate, and even if they do not, it is still important to remember that everyone has a story. Everyone has their reasons for being who they are. Dark Lord Lothar then begins speaking to Erebos again. If you were to join us, you would end up working alongside Dr. Erebus, who I just realized has a very similar name to you, and would work with him and likely others to create the Necromonarchs. Erebos nods, seeming intrigued by the prospect. I see. And what would be my role within this group if I were to join? Dark Lord Lothar ponders for a moment. That is for Darkest Emperor Alpha to decide, but likely high up within the Shadowstein science team, like Dr. Erebus. The Dark Queen nods thoughtfully. Indeed, your abilities in necromancy, as well as your knowledge of the mortal realm, would be invaluable assets to our cause. Dark King Mordecai chuckles darkly. Indeed, and I imagine that your unique perspective on matters of power and control would prove quite interesting to our young emperor. Well, young isn't exactly the correct term, is it? It's been a long time since anyone has dared to question his supremacy. Erebos, you would have the ear of the Darkest Emperor Alpha, and I'm certain that he would value your counsel and insights. You could help shape the future of our realm in ways that few others could. Dark Lord Lothar nods in agreement. Indeed, your unique perspective and understanding of the mortal realm would be invaluable to us. I have no doubt that you would find a place of great importance within our ranks. The Dark Queen smiles, her ruby lips curling into a predatory grin. And you will find, Erebos, that our Emperor values loyalty above all else. As long as you prove yourself to be a faithful servant, there is no limit to what you might achieve. Dark King Mordecai nods in agreement. Indeed, our Emperor is not one to be trifled with, but nor is he a tyrant. He seeks the best for his people. and those who prove themselves worthy of his trust shall be rewarded accordingly. Dark Queen Lilith smirks, and those who do not, well, let us just say that they would do well not to cross him. His patience is legendary, but even the mightiest of oaks must eventually fall to the relentless march of time. The Dark King, Mordecai, nods in agreement. Our Emperor is a man of great wisdom and foresight. He has built this empire from nothing, and he will guide us through these uncertain times. Those who would stand against him would do well to consider the consequences. The Dark Queen, Lilith, smirks wickedly, and as for the ones who find themselves on the wrong side of his favor, well, let us just say that they will find solace in the knowledge that their punishment will be swift and merciless. Dark King Mordecai nods in solemn agreement. Indeed, our Emperor is not a man to be trifled with, but nor is he one to show mercy where it is not deserved. Those who serve him loyally shall reap the rewards of their loyalty, but those who dare to defy him shall face the full weight of his wrath. The Dark Queen, Lilith, grins wickedly. Our Emperor is a master of strategy, and his patience is legendary. He has built this empire from nothing, and he shall guide us through the coming storm. Those who oppose him would do well to remember that they are not facing merely a mortal king, but a force of nature that has been honed over millennia. She gestures to the assembled Dark Council. We stand together, united in our devotion to the Emperor's vision. Erebos, we welcome you into our fold. Your knowledge and experience will be invaluable in our quest for power and dominion. But know this, you are not joining us out of mere necessity or self-interest. You are joining us because you have seen the truth, and you believe in our cause. With a wave of her hand, the throne room's grand doors swing open, revealing a procession of shadowy figures clad in midnight black. They bow their heads in unison as they approach, their steps in perfect synchrony. At the head of the procession is a figure cloaked in such impenetrable darkness that it seems to devour light itself. His presence is commanding, his voice deep and resonant as he speaks. The head figure of the procession is the Lich King that once served the Shadow King back in 2124, and now has returned and once again serves his former master, even now in his new form as Dark King Mordecai. Dark King Mordecai then begins speaking playfully. Oh, it's the Lich King, once the Archmage of the Emerald Isles, and before that just a humble emissary of the doomed empire of Frosthaven. Good old Gerald. Dark King Mordecai says, playfully yet slightly mockingly, as if talking to an old friend. The Lich King, not amused, looks at Dark King Mordecai with a cold glare. My time under the service of the Shadow King was regrettable, to say the least. However, I have found solace in the Emperor's embrace. It is my honor to stand before you all today as a symbol of the Shadow Empire's eternal might and the beginning of a new era. Erebos, the embodiment of shadow and oblivion, is still observing this all going down. The whispers of the shadows grew louder, and the air grew colder as Erebos, the ancient and powerful embodiment of shadow and oblivion, made his presence known. His decision to join the Empire of Shadowstein was not made lightly. For millennia, he had dwelt in the realm of shadows, watching the rise and fall of civilizations, the dance of light and dark across the cosmos. Yet, he had never felt the call to directly influence the mortal world until now. The ambition and power of the Darkest Emperor Alpha had piqued his interest, and the chaos that was unfolding across the universe was a canvas ripe for his influence.